made it up to chapter 17, but we have skipped, I don't remember how many weeks here. I think even in December, there were so many weeks we wasn't able to do, and then we had Christmas and New Year's and all of that, and then I was gone for a couple Wednesdays there to Israel, and so it's been well over a month, I think, since we have been talking about Revelation and dealing with Revelation. But let us just, by way of review tonight, I'm gonna deal with some new material tonight, but just kind of by way of review, let's just catch up to what we have talked about, just to get back in that mindset a little bit. But if you remember, when we first started this study, we started in chapter 4. I didn't deal with the churches in 1, 2, and 3 because I had done a series on that on Sunday mornings, right? And so we started in chapter 4. And in chapter 4, that is basically a throne room scene. This is just after the rapture. This is where the throne room scene is, and the people of God are in heaven rejoicing and praising the Lord. And then all of a sudden, there's a scene that shifts, and they're looking for somebody worthy to open the scroll or open the book, and they're weeping because nobody's worthy. And then somebody speaks up and says, "Oh, there's one who's worthy." And it's the Lion of the tribe of Judah who hath prevailed, and so we know who that is. That's Jesus. And so Jesus takes the scroll, which is, what is that scroll? What is it? Somebody, we'll do some trivia here to start off with. What is that scroll? Yeah, it's the deed to the earth. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, and the title deed. And so he opens it up, and again, it is not really about his ownership, but how he's going to claim ownership again, or how he's going to reclaim the earth. And of course, he begins to open these scrolls, and we've been through all these judgments already. We have the 7 seal judgments, the 7 trumpet judgments, and the 7 bowl judgments. So we've seen all of that. And honestly, from chapter 4 and 5, that was around the throne. From chapter 6 through chapter 18, dealt with those 3 brackets of types of judgment. And it affected every aspect of creation. It affected everything green. It affected the sky. It affected the earth. It affected the heavens, sun, moon, and stars. It affects men. It affects beasts. It affects water, fresh water, salt water. It affects the mountains. It affects the islands. I mean, there's nothing left untouched from these judgments. There's going to be death and destruction like the world has never seen before. We've went through all of that. And where we're at here in chapter 17 is, the first 3.5 years, there's going to be the man who's going to be he's going to be the forefront of the leader at that time, and he is known as the Antichrist. All right, that's what he's known at. The first 3.5 years, he's going to be gathering people together. We'll talk more about this in just a minute. Gathering people together in one form of worship. There is a one world government. You've heard this in recent days, that like the one world government, or there's even a term called globalist. And this is not doing what's good for America or for the United Kingdom or for whatever. It's good for the globe, what's good for everybody. And so you see even that movement a little bit even today. But the Antichrist is going to be behind, satanically charged. Satan is behind all of it. Antichrist is going to be the main head figure who's going to be ruling during that time. The first 3.5 years is going to be one of him setting up his kingdom and his systems. And then the last 3.5 years are, there's a treaty that's going to be broken with Israel, and this is when Israel begins to be hunted, and on a grand scale, they're going to try to wipe out anything to do with God, anything to do with God's people, and so this is all going on while all these plagues are happening from these different judgments. Does all that make sense? All right. So, and again, I'm brushing over a lot of this. Just to kind of catch us up, all right? But here we are in chapter 17. We're nearing the very end of the tribulation period. I mean, we're in the final weeks of the tribulation period. How long is the tribulation period? 7 years, all right? That's how long it lasts. So we have the first 3.5 that are tribulation. The last 3.5 are great tribulation. It's also called the time of Jacob's trouble because, again, the church is raptured out and the attention is focused on God's people. And again, he is not done with Israel. And I probably at some point need to do a study. There is a resurgence of this doctrine. Have you ever heard of replacement theology? You ever heard of that? Replacement theology. There's another name for it. It is, what's the other name for that, Tim? Do you remember? Covenant theology. Covenant theology and replacement theology, they're almost synonymous. And but what that says is that basically the church has replaced Israel. All right, and that is not true. That is not the case. All right, and I probably need to at some point do a study on that. We can outline because there is a resurgence of that, and you need to have some good solid Bible behind that. All right, so anyway, and this even in Southern Baptist. Anybody heard the name Voddie Baucham? Anybody heard that name before? You know who I'm talking about? He was a covenant theology guy. I mean, he was. He ran for actually Southern Baptist president, to be the Southern Baptist president a couple years ago, I think. And I didn't get it, and he passed away. He actually passed away, I think, in 25. But just one of those freak things. But anyway, he's a covenant theology guy. I was listening to him one day, and it came out clearly that I saw where he was going, saw what he was saying. He's a covenant theology guy. But I'll give you maybe when we finish Revelation, maybe we can go through that. Maybe look at that covenant theology. But nevertheless, so here we are. We're at the end of this. God's dealing with Israel. Are there going to be other believers during this time that get saved during the tribulation? Yes, there will be people that get saved during the tribulation, but I do believe there's criteria to that. I don't think they have heard the gospel before the rapture, but now they have been awakened to the truth. There's going to be several witnesses that are going on. You remember the 144,000 that are evangelists, that are witnesses for the Lord, that are sealed and they can't be touched. And then you also have the 2 witnesses that do supernatural events, supernatural things. Fire comes out of their mouth. They're able to close up heaven so it doesn't rain, almost like Elijah did. And so there's all sorts of things going on, and they're proclaiming truth. And then you also have an angel. We saw that flying in heaven, proclaiming the gospel, proclaiming the truth during this time. So all these things going on. So people are going to hear the truth, but the vast majority, again, reject the truth and they follow the Antichrist. But there will be some that are saved. There will be some Jewish people who recognize also that the real true Messiah and begin to turn to the Lord during this time. Not everybody, but a lot of them. The Antichrist is going to try to hunt them down. And as a matter of fact, you remember in part of what we've read in previous is there's a place prepared for them in the wilderness. And so the Antichrist is going to come against them 2 times and fail, but the pressure is going to be continuous. All right, so anyway, so let's get down now to chapter 17. I'll begin reading in verse number 1. That's not where I'm going to key. We've already gone through about 6 verses of this in previous, but we're going to trot ahead with a couple more verses, but we'll kind of rehash this a little bit more because I think it's important that you understand this. Look in chapter 17, verse number 1. And there came one of the 7 angels, which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, and I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit on a scarlet-colored beast, full of the names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abomination of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. And the angel said unto me, Wherefore did thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman, and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition, and they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. Now, all right, I'm going to stop right there, okay? And so let's just kind of go through some of this, all right? So first of all, in chapter 17, we're at verse number 5. Let's go through this title again. Again, this is not a church that is established at this particular juncture of human history that says, like we have Mount Carmel Baptist Church out here on the front of it. This is not Mystery Babylon, the great mother of harlots and the abomination of the earth church. That's not what that is, okay? What this is a, when you get into chapter 17 here, the system that the Antichrist builds is called Babylon, okay? Or Babylon, that's what it is, the world systems that he has created. There are several segments of that system. One of them is a religious system. And when you get into chapter 18, it's going to be the economic system and the political system of his reign, of his kingdom, of his empire, okay? And so what we're dealing with here in chapter 17 is the religious section or the religious arm of that. If you remember, we've already talked about some of this, I think, back in chapter 13, how the Antichrist, what he's going to do, and you have the false prophet that comes in to reinforce what he's trying to do. Remember, he's wanting to be worshiped. Remember the Antichrist, he's wanting to be worshiped, and he's going to set himself up to be worshiped. This is a religious system. All right, when we talk about Babylon, again, this is what we're dealing with here is the final destruction. We've had all these plagues and all this being poured out, the system that the Antichrist has built, and now God is about to do away with all of this. This is the final destruction of the system that the Antichrist has set up. Let me give you an example even now. Who actually runs behind the scenes the governments? Who does that? Or we could say it this way. Does God allow that to be run? I mean, I think we could say that. But who is actually behind the scenes running it? Do you remember when Jesus was in the wilderness being tempted? And Satan, he says, look, if you'll bow down and worship me, I'll give you all these kingdoms. Remember that? All right, so when you look at politics, when you say our politicians in Washington, would you say they're the most honorable? They stand for truth? They stand for righteousness? Is that what you would say about them? No. What is going on behind the scenes? That's what I'm trying to get you to see. What about the judicial system? Does the judicial system, man, they get it right every time, don't they? You know, it's funny how a judge can sit at one person and it's somebody they don't know and somebody they could care less about, and they've committed a crime, and whatever crime it is, they'll give them whatever penalty it is. But then it's somebody they know and they've committed the same crime, and they're lighter on them because they know them. Oh, they're good people, you know. And so you have that. Now, when Jesus comes back, all that's going to stop. But who is behind these world systems? All right, what about the communications systems that we have, media? Who's behind that? Man, can we say that media, all that they give is truth? Man, that's it, isn't it? Man, I mean, everything that you get from the media, you can turn on the television, everything is truth. You believe that? No. Who's behind that is what I'm getting at. There is forces that are behind that, and it's called the spirit of Antichrist. It's satanically charged, and some of these things are already working, being built, and the education system. Who's behind that? Now, I'm thankful that we have teachers that do stand for rights, but I'm talking about an overall system. Could we say the education system, man, I mean, they want what's best for the kids, don't they? I mean, they want to teach them what's right and what's truth. Is that where we're at today? No, it's not. I mean, it's really an indoctrination where, you know, boys are girls and girls are boys, and boys can go in the girls' locker room and girls can go in the boys' locker room. And I mean, look, it's craziness, you know. And so, anyway, having said all that, so what is the spirit that's working behind all of that? And that's what I'm trying to get you to see. Well, these systems that will be set up, again, there are influences now because the church is still here. All right, there are influences that kind of hold back some of that stuff. But then when the church is gone and the Antichrist is actually on the scene, those things will be in full force. It's going to be anti-God, anti-Christ, and full of wickedness and evil, all of those systems. In this particular system we're talking about tonight, we're going to talk about the religious system. And that's what Babylon is. Now, Babylon is a specific geographic location, and some people think that the hub or the headquarters of this religious system is going to be where Babylon was physically. And by the way, that's in Iraq, and that's 50 miles south of Baghdad. That's where the old Babylon was, all right? And so this is where, again, it says that was, that is, and that it was not, and is, and so we'll look at that here in just a minute. But so you have Babylon that is going to be revived, the revived Babylon, all right, that is going to be part of a religious system, all right, and this religious system, you remember, I'm giving you some of the stuff we've talked about in the past. You remember all the way back in Genesis, maybe chapter 10 or 11, right in there, the Tower of Babel. Remember that? All right, this is, again, the heart of that is Babylon. That's where you get the heart of that. This is where religion began. This is where all the world religions, not Christianity, not the one true God, that's not where, but all the other religions, you remember where the languages broke up, and all that, but this is where the heart of false religion began. This is where a lot of that began there. And so that is Babylon. And again, this is a title ascribed to this system. And the world at this time is going to unite around this religious system that is going to be set up. There's going to be some supernatural things that take place. And remember that Satan, it even says of him that he can transform himself into an angel of light, right? So these things will look good to the people left on the earth, and they're going to be deceived, and they're going to buy into that deceit. They're going to be deceived by the Antichrist. They're going to be wholeheartedly engaged in the worship of the Antichrist in this false religion. And it also calls it the mother of harlots. Now, this does not necessarily mean sexual activity. It can be incorporated. Some of the old heathen religions, like Baal worship, did have that type of thing orchestrated into the worship of Baal, if you go and study those things. All right, so, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. What this means is sometimes in the Old Testament, God would, when Israel would introduce idols into their life and into their culture, and they began to serve other gods. You see this a lot of times in the book of Judges, and they would begin to go after other gods. And he would call that, cheating on him, cheating on the Lord, or playing the harlot. He would talk about that, playing the harlot. In other words, they were leaving the relationship that they had with God to go and worship other idols. So this has to do with, when it talks about the great harlot, it talks about idolatry. Remember that the Antichrist, he's setting up himself to be worshipped. He's going to enter the temple, the third temple that is not yet built. He's going to enter that temple and set himself up to be worshipped. You remember they create a statue. They create a statue. This is all in the book of Revelation if you go and read it. They create a statue, and I don't know how they're going to do that. He's going to speak. There's going to be some supernatural things attached to this idol god that is erected. So when we're talking about Babylon, we're talking about a religious system that is idolatry, that at the core of it is idolatry. And the world is going to unite around this counterfeit religion, and they're going to be deceived. As a matter of fact, go back to, again, these people are going to be gathered against the Lord, but look in chapter 16. Let me just kind of set the stage for you here. Chapter 16, verse number 12. And the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. For they are the spirits of devils, now look what they're doing, working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and the whole world to gather them to battle of the great day of God Almighty. So what is behind the scenes? The Antichrist, he's using, in part, a religious system to unite people for a common cause. And that common cause is to do battle against the Lord and at, again, Megiddo. And me and Faye here recently drove through that valley, and I pointed out to her, I said, this is where it's going to take place, right here, you know. And so where that battle is going to take place in Megiddo at Armageddon, the Battle of Armageddon. But they're going to be deceived, and demons are going to be used to promote that deception and to do works and miracles and signs to convince people that the Antichrist is the one. I mean, that's the one we're supposed to be worshiping. So that's the deception they're going to buy into. And so they're going to be, again, pulled together. And but again, chapter 17, again, look in verse number 1. It lets us know what's going to happen. And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying, Come hither, and I will show thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. So again, that great whore is talking about the Babylon, is talking about that system, and it's about to be overthrown. God is about to overthrow it, and this is what we're reading about in chapter 17. All right, so let's talk about the harlot for just a minute. In verse number 15 of chapter 17, it says, And he said unto me, let me back up. In verse number 1, the great whore which sitteth upon many waters. You see that? It sitteth upon many waters. Then down in verse 15 it says, And he said unto me, The waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, and are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. So in other words, there is a position of power, there is a position of authority, and it reaches to the leaders, it reaches to the people, it reaches to nations, it reaches to tongues, that's other languages, it has a global reach, and this is the authority that the harlot has, or this religious system. That's the authority that it has. And also has, again, it has to do with trade and nations, and then also alliances. Look in verse number 2 of chapter 17. With whom the kings of the earth had committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth had made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So who's buying into this? You have kings that are doing it, and you have the subjects that are doing it. You have people, and you have kings. So her alliances are with leaders and people, with the Antichrist, and all of that. Now, the beast that she's riding on, what is that? The beast that she's riding on is actually the Antichrist, okay? That is the beast. All right, we'll get to that in just a minute as well. So we see her authority, the harlot, the authority, the alliances that are uniting the world together in this false religion. And then verse number 4, the apparel that she has, and she's decked out with riches and wealth and garments, all of that. So she's got this religious system located in Babylon, is going to be rich and powerful and influential. And then she's going to be there's going to be abominations that are tied to her. Verse number 4, the abominations and filthiness of her fornication. So she's going to be wicked. And then there's accusations. Look in the next one here, verse number 5. And on her forehead, let's see, was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots, and the abomination of the earth. And I saw a woman drunken with the blood of the saints. So what is she going to be doing? If she's drunk with the blood of the saints, what does that mean? All right, they're going to be killing anybody that stands for truth. All right, that's basically what that had. They're going to be martyring anybody that stands for truth, believers, Jewish, Gentiles. If they're a believer, they're going to attempt to overthrow them, to kill them, to martyr them. And with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus, when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. And again, John is not wondering with a positive admiration. He's standing in awe of just the wickedness and the vileness and what they stand for and what is being allowed to happen here. And so now let's get to the explanation of the harlot here. All right, verse number 7. And the angel said unto me, wherefore did thou marvel? In other words, what are you wondering about this? Can you imagine seeing these visions? Can you imagine that? Would you have questions when you see this? And John has some questions, and he's wondering, and I think in his mind, what is going on? What is the meaning of this? Why am I being shown this? And then the angel that's there, he's saying, look, relax, I'm going to explain it. He says, I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and the beast that carrieth her, which had the 7 heads and 10 horns. We're going to skip over the 7 heads and 10 horns. We'll get to that in one of the next studies, okay? And it says, the beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. You see that said again and again and again. That was and is not. So you see it again and again. Let me see here. And I went through Iraq. I went through all of that. I'm going through my notes here for a minute. And it is believed by many that, again, this whole religious system is going to be ruled by, again, the harlot. But the harlot is actually being used by the Antichrist. And I'll show you that in just a minute. There are times, there are some things, let me give you some reasons why people think this is a literal place that the headquarters is going to be, and it's going to have all that power, and all the world is going to be drawn to it, or the most of the world is going to be drawn to it. All right, so Isaiah and Jeremiah, and I didn't write down every reference for this, and you can go back and study this at your leisure if you want to, but Isaiah and Jeremiah talk about this event. They talk about the destruction of Babylon. Now, we do know that Babylon was destroyed. Remember the Persians and the Assyrians, the Persians came in and destroyed Babylon. They did it one night. Remember that? That's in the book of Daniel. And but there's more to the prophecies than what was accomplished in that. So there were times when Babylon fell because of their enemies, and that is recorded. And some of that would fulfill some of the prophecies. All right, and then also just through the course of the decay of government, decay of kings, and the decay of a nation over the years, some of these prophecies would be also fulfilled. But there are some that are yet to be fulfilled. That's why it is believed that Babylon is going to rise again, because, again, we see it that was and is, and what does it say there? That was and is not and yet is. All right, so we see that. So some people think that Babylon is going to rise again. And let me give you a few things in these prophecies. All right, because in this prophecy, when it talks about Babylon being destroyed, it will talk about the sun and the stars being darkened. All right, what happens during the tribulation period? We've already looked at this numerous times in just about every one of these sets of judgments. During this judgment, during this tribulation period, what's going to happen to the sun and the stars? They're going to be darkened. All right, and so, and then it also says that the city, or Babylon, is going to be desolate as Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, they have actually uncovered recently where Sodom and Gomorrah actually is. And you know what they found? They basically found brimstone is what they call it. It's where everything was destroyed with fire. And, I mean, there's balls of, like, sulfur and just that type of thing that just destroyed and decimated Sodom and Gomorrah. And there's nothing there to this day. And when it talks about being destroyed, when Babylon is going to be destroyed, it's going to be like Sodom and Gomorrah. That has not yet happened. That has not yet happened. It also talks about that no one will enter it anymore. These are all prophecies between Isaiah and Jeremiah. All right, and so there are people that you can still go there now to some of these places. But when this happens, when the destruction happens, no one will enter it anymore. This judgment is going to be for Babylon and all the world. This is a prophecy within Isaiah and Jeremiah. And so what is going on in the tribulation period? This is a judgment for not just Babylon, but it's also a judgment for the whole world. The whole world is attached to it. Also, there's in Isaiah 14, it talks about Lucifer being cast into Sheol, being cast into the lake of fire. And so this is going to take place right after the fall of Babylon. And it also talks about the stones would never be used again. The stones are going to be so destroyed that the stones would never be able to be used again in construction in any form. And so the world system is connected to this place, Babylon. It's also connected to a person, the Antichrist. Now, let's talk about that was and is not and is again. Let's talk about that. So who is this talking about? So who is the one riding the beast? The harlot is riding the beast. So who is this beast? All right. And let's go back to chapter 13. All right, verse number 3. And this is a beast coming out of the sea, and it says, and I saw one of his heads that were wounded to death. This is the Antichrist. And his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. And they worshiped the dragon which gave power unto the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? All right, so what has happened? He is going to sustain a wound. It's going to seem like a mortal wound. He's going to resurrect, all right, from that wound, and and what is this? What is this a picture of here? What does this look like? What is this similar to? Who died and rose again? I'm going to get a little more blunt for you, okay? Who died and rose again? Jesus did. But now the beast is going to come and simulate that. I don't think it's going to be actual or literal, because Satan does not have the power of life. All right? And so he is going to come and mock death in some way. It's going to look like he has died. It's going to look like he rose from the dead. That's what it's going to look like. And then when that happens, what are the people of the earth going to do? They're going to flock to him. Who is able to make war with him? Man, look at his power. Look at these signs. Look at this supernatural stuff that he's doing. We can't explain this. And so they're going to follow him, and they're going to be deceived by it. Also, verse number 12, and he exerciseth all power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And we see it again. All right, so this will be, again, a fake resurrection. Let's see. And when and this will mark, when that happens, that's about the midpoint of the tribulation. When that happens, and he returns to power after his resurrection, all right, things are going to change. That is when the treaty gets broken with Israel. We talked about that. That's when he starts hunting Christians down. That's when he starts hunting believers. That's when he tries to start stifling truth. That's when that happens, when it really ramps up. And again, that's the latter part of the tribulation there, the latter half of the tribulation. He's going to be intolerant of truth, incorporating multiple religions into this false religion that people are going to flock to. All right. Let's see here. And it amazes the whole world. Let's see here. Let me go back to that chapter 13. No, that wasn't it. I wrote down a verse, but did not write down the chapter of it. Go back to chapter 17, just to give you a little bit. Verse 18, and the woman which thou sawest is that great city. It's not just a person. You understand what I'm saying? This woman, the harlot, is not just the beast is a person. The beast that she's riding is a person. It is the Antichrist. But the woman is the actual religious system. All right, does that make sense? The woman is the actual religious system. And where is it located? South of Baghdad in Iraq. That's where Babylon is. And look what it says in verse 18. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. All right, that's where the headquarters of this religious system is going to be, there in Babylon. Let's see. Well, I cannot believe I did not. Well, I was going to talk about, all right, let's go back to verse 16. And the beast does something to the harlot. All right, the Antichrist does something to this religious system. Look in verse number 16. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore. Now, the whore, again, that's talking about the harlot. That's talking about, so now, remember the beast has been carrying the harlot. Remember that? It's been carrying it. And right around that mid tribulation time, something changes, and now he hates the whore. Why does he hate it? Because now he's transitioning the worship not to be just a conglomeration of a religious system, but that religious system is now going to turn to worship him. That's why he hates that one system. All right, so that one system that has been raised up with Babylon, you remember Babel, it had a conglomeration of all of these forms of idolatry, correct? All right, and so that original, what the whore will stand for, what the harlot will stand for, is all of these world religions coming to one. All right, and so there's going to be all these world systems coming to one, and they're worshiping, but they're worshiping idols. But now the beast is going to be mad at the harlot, or upset with the harlot, or hating the harlot, because now he wants to be worshipped. You with me? And so now he's going to do away, or he's going to kill the harlot, if you would, kill the old system to erect a new system so that he is going to be worshipped. Does that make sense? He's replacing all of the old idol worship with the worship of himself. All right, so that's what he's going to be doing. And it also says, go back to verse number 8. The beast which thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. And the bottomless pit, and we could go back and look at that, but that is where demons came out of. This is the abode of demons and that kind of thing. This is where he comes out of. But then also look and go into perdition. What is the beast destined for? What is perdition? Do you know what perdition means? It means destruction. That's basically what that means. All right, it means the wickedness and destruction. And so this is what the beast is destined for. Again, verse number 1 is talking about the destruction of this world system, the end of this world system. And so this system that the harlot has created, this world system, and now the beast has been promoting that, but it changes midstream, and now the beast is being elevated to be worshipped, or the Antichrist is elevated to be worshipped, and God is telling us that, look, something's going to happen. He's going to perdition. This is going to destruction, and he's coming out of the bottomless pit, and where eventually will the Antichrist end up? What's his end place? The lake of fire. I mean, that's the destruction. That's the perdition that he's headed towards. So he comes with all the power of the pit on his way to do what he does on the earth, to do battle against the Lord, but eventually he's going to be led to destructions. And in verse number 8, his followers, look what it says, and on the earth, whose names were not written in the book of life. So who are these people? Who are these people that follow this false religion, that follow the beast, that worship the beast, and are going to make war with the Lamb, with the Lord? Who are these people? They were not written in the book of life. What does that mean for them? They were unsaved. They were unbelievers. Let me ask you something. Had they heard the truth? I believe every person here that has heard the truth because, again, you had the angel, you had the 144,000, you had the two witnesses doing supernatural things. And they have rejected the truth. They knew where all the judgments were coming from, and they still refused to repent. Remember that we've seen that over and over and over. They refused to repent. And so their names are not written in the book of life. So where is their end? Where is their end destination? The same place as the Antichrist. They're going to be in the lake of fire eventually. All right, so these are unbelievers. These are unsaved. They never repented. They did hear truth, but they did not believe. But what they will believe is the signs and the power and the authority that the Antichrist has. But honestly, is that real power? Is that real? Who is more powerful than the Antichrist? Who is more powerful than Satan? Who has more authority than him? And what I'm saying is those people are going to be deceived by the things that they see and the things that they experience instead of truth. And I would tell you today that people are the same way. They don't believe truth. They believe in what they see. They believe in what they hear that is contrary to truth. They follow their emotions. They follow what they want to, their feelings. They follow that and reject truth. You see it on a daily basis. You can't turn on a TV and not see it. That people have rejected truth when truth has been given. They know the truth. But real authority is with the Lord. And they have rejected the voice of truth. And so next time when we get together, one of the next times, we're going to be talking about the 7 heads and 10 horns, what that means and what that looks like. All right, and again, this is the system that the beast has set up. All right, so we did a little bit of review, did a little bit of new material. Did I confuse everybody with all that? Are you straight with all that? Okay, all right, so... So if you do, come see me. I'll try to explain it a little better. And so we will dig a little deeper. I'll try to finish the chapter 17, the next time we meet. Okay, and if we have ice and snow and all that, it doesn't look like it's going to get real warm over until after Wednesday. So we'll watch the weather, see. We'll send out messages, let you know. And if anybody, and if there's a question. If there's a question about your road being icy and you think it's dangerous, look, don't attempt it. We want to be safe if you need. And let me also say, if